North Shore versus South Shore Long Island, which fits you better? If you're thinking about moving to Long Island, one of the biggest decisions that you'll eventually run into is this: North Shore or South Shore. And honestly, if you're not from Long Island originally, you probably think, well, how different can they actually really be? But trust me, I want you to understand the vibe is definitely completely different. The lifestyle is different. The scenery is different. Even the energy is different depending on which shore you're on. And I think, for a lot of buyers, they really underestimate they underestimate how important this decision actually is, because choosing the wrong fit can completely change how happy you are after you move. So in today's video, I want to break down the real differences between Long Island's North Shore and the South Shore. Not just the obvious stuff, but the actual lifestyle differences that you're going to experience and that people experience once they live there. And I think this comes down way more to personality than people actually realize. So let's start with the feel, right? The vibe. So the North Shore has a completely different aesthetic from the South Shore. The North Shore, it's going to tend to feel a little bit more scenic. It's going to be more woodsy. It's more elevated, more hilly, and honestly, it's going to be a little bit more historic in certain areas. You've got just really windy roads. You've got hills. You've got harbors. You've got old estates, and you've got a very different kind of a waterfront vibe, right? So you got towns like Huntington, Northport, Oyster Bay, Port Washington. Those are some towns that really capture the North Shore kind of feel. Whereas the South Shore is going to feel much flatter. It's going to feel a lot more beachier, and it's going to feel more coastal in a direct, like, ocean access kind of way, right? Because the ocean is you're by the ocean on the South Shore. It's literally on the side of the ocean. So places like Massapequa, Wantagh, Long Beach, Babylon, and Sayville have a much different type of energy. It's more tied into beaches. It's more tied into boating and bays and marinas and that ocean kind of lifestyle. And most buyers naturally gravitate towards one vibe almost immediately. So let's talk about the waterfront lifestyle, because this is a huge difference. The North Shore, the waterfront is much more harbor style. It's scenic. It's it's really calm, and it feels a little bit more tucked away, more private in a lot of areas. Whereas the South Shore is much more tied directly to beach access and to direct ocean access. You've got Jones Beach, Robert Moses, Long Beach. The South Shore beach culture is a major part of the life there. And if someone is heavily, if you're someone like me who's into boating, beach days, fishing, waterfront type of activities, the South Shore tends to, attract those types of people, much more quickly. Another major difference is going to be the downtown. So the North Shore, it tends to feel more classic, tends to feel more historic. Huntington is probably one of the best examples of that. You've got restaurants, you've got some great nightlife, you've got shops, but it still has that North Shore kind of character to it. Whereas the South Shore downtowns often feel a little more casual, a little bit more laid back, more coastal overall, that kind of surfer dude kind of vibe. Whereas, places like Babylon, Patchogue, and Long Beach have a very different kind of atmosphere. And this is where, your personality, your lifestyle is going to start becoming really important. Another thing that people don't realize is the commuting differences. So, generally speaking, both shores can work for NYC commuters depending on the location. So, but commuting, the patterns and train lines can feel different depending on where you are. And honestly, some buyers end up prioritizing commute convenience more than they expected once real life kicks in. So now let's talk about housing styles, because there's definitely a difference here too. The North Shore often has a variation in elevation. You've got more wooded lots. In certain areas, you got more traditional or historic feeling homes. Whereas the South Shore tends to have more of a classic suburban kind of coastal layout. And another thing to think about on the South Shore is the flood zones. Okay, okay, it's something to think about. Depending on how close you are to the water, this is definitely something that buyers absolutely need to understand. Now, with that said, one thing I think is really interesting is how emotional this debate gets among a lot of Long Islanders. People are very loyal to their shore, very loyal. North Shore people love the scenery, the character, the harbor, the towns, the quieter, upscale kind of feel in certain areas. Whereas the South Shore people, they love the beach culture, the boating lifestyle, and the more laid back, kind of coastal vibe. And both sides, they're both going to think that they're right. And now, personally, I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is choosing based purely on house price instead of lifestyle fit. Because if you love the beach, and you move to a wooded North Shore town, you may feel disconnected from the lifestyle that you actually wanted. And the reverse is true too. So that's definitely something to really, really, really think about. Right? It's thinking about that lifestyle that you actually wanted, and just understanding that if you go to the wrong area, the reverse absolutely can be true. So, if you love scenic, kind of harbor towns, and you end up somewhere that feels too beachy tourism, like oriented for your personality, you'll notice it. You'll notice it pretty quickly. And at the end of the day, I think the North Shore versus the South Shore decision really comes down to this, right? Do you want to move? Do you want more scenic harbor town energy, or do you want more beach town kind of coastal energy? And that's the core difference. Neither one is objectively better. They're just really different. They're different lifestyles, and the key is figuring out, really figuring out which one actually fits your personality before you buy. So, if you're on the fence, you're thinking about making that move to Long Island, New York, and you want some help figuring out which shore is best for you and which towns will fit your lifestyle best, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to point you out in the right direction. All of my contact information is down below in the description. You can call me, text me, email me, or you can set up a Zoom consultation. All my information will be down below so we can get connected and I can help you to find the home of your dreams. Thanks for checking out today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.